It began like an ordinary morning in Charlotte, North Carolina. Commuters poured through the city's transit station. Tired faces, coffee cups, rushing footsteps echoing under flickering fluorescent lights. But hidden in that sea of strangers was one woman whose quiet journey would end in horror. Iryna Zarutska, a Ukrainian immigrant who had come to America chasing hope and stability, never made it home that day. She was stabbed in front of dozens of stunned passengers, a crime so sudden, so violent, that it left the city frozen in silence. Cameras caught fragments of the chaos, but not the why. What had driven a man to kill someone he didn't even know? The news spread like wildfire. Reporters surrounded the scene. Flashing cameras reflected in the pools of blood still staining the floor. Witnesses described screams, confusion, and the suspect, Joshua Denning, a quiet man who moments earlier had been pacing near the platform, muttering under his breath. When officers grabbed him, he didn't resist. He only said one thing: "She knows the truth." But no one knew what he meant. No one understood what truth he was talking about. And that single sentence opened the door to one of the most haunting psychological mysteries in American criminal history. As investigators peeled back the layers of Joshua's life, they found something far more chilling than rage. They found manipulation, hidden conversations, experiments on the human mind, and a woman who had turned madness into science. This wasn't just a murder. It was the result of curiosity turned evil. Stay till the end, because once you see how deep this case goes, you'll never look at your reflection the same way again. The morning began with the sound of brakes screeching and train doors sliding open. Iryna Zarutska, dressed in her simple office attire, stepped onto the platform holding her travel mug. She had no idea that her last steps on Earth were being watched by a pair of eyes burning with paranoia. Surveillance footage showed a man standing just a few meters away, fidgeting, whispering to himself, glancing toward her repeatedly. Other passengers didn't notice him. To them, he was just another commuter lost in thought. But to Iryna, those final seconds would feel like an eternity. The attack happened at 8:47 a.m. The suspect lunged without warning, the knife flashing once before chaos erupted. People screamed. Someone pulled the emergency alarm. A security camera caught the moment Iryna collapsed, her coffee spilling across the tiles, mixing with blood as passengers fled in panic. The attacker didn't run. He just stood there, trembling, eyes wide, whispering the same words over and over. She knew. She had to be stopped. When police arrived, he dropped the weapon and went completely silent. That silence was just the beginning. Because when investigators questioned him later, what he said sent chills down every spine in the room. He claimed he had been receiving messages, voices that told him Iryna wasn't human, that she was watching him through reflections, through mirrors, through glass. Everyone thought it was insanity, until detectives uncovered evidence suggesting he wasn't hearing voices randomly. Someone had been sending them to him. Detectives delved into Joshua's past and discovered years of untreated schizophrenia and isolation. He'd withdrawn from friends, lost his job, and spent hours online in dark forums discussing conspiracies and hallucinations. His apartment was like a mirror of his mind, chaotic, cluttered, and terrifying. Notes covered the walls. "They know. Don't trust her." And the reflection lies. But buried under the madness was something strange. Detailed transcripts of conversations with a user named EM. At first, police assumed it was another delusional creation. But when cyber investigators traced the messages, they found a real person. A psychology student named Eliza Monroe from Raleigh, North Carolina. Her messages weren't comforting or supportive. They were guiding him deeper into fear. "She's watching you," one message read. "Look in the glass, you'll see her." Another said, "She's not real. She's part of the system." The realization hit detectives like thunder. Someone had been deliberately manipulating a mentally ill man's delusions, and that manipulation had led to murder. When police confronted Eliza, She didn't deny knowing Joshua. In fact, she smiled. "He was part of my study," she said. "I was observing the evolution of paranoia through online reinforcement." She spoke as if she had discovered something groundbreaking. But what she had really discovered was how fragile the human mind is, and how easy it is to destroy it. Eliza Monroe's apartment looked nothing like a killer's den. It looked like any young academic's home. Books, notes, coffee mugs, and sticky notes scattered across her desk. But her laptop told a different story. Inside it were files labeled Subjects 0112. Joshua Denning was listed as Subject 07. Each file included transcripts, psychological notes, and behavioral observations. She had been feeding into their fears, subtly crafting their realities to see how far they would go. And she didn't do it out of hate. She did it out of curiosity. The more investigators read, the darker it became. She had written about Joshua's progression, noting his delusions with the fascination of a scientist watching a storm. Subject showing externalization of fear patterns, she wrote weeks before the murder. Next phase, trigger event. She even predicted his breaking point within a margin of 2 days. To her, it wasn't tragedy, it was data. When questioned about Iryna's death, Eliza whispered something chilling. "He needed a reflection. Every mind does." Her words confused even the experts. Was she speaking metaphorically? Or had she really believed she could create a reflection for Joshua? Someone for him to project his fears onto? Because if that was true, then Iryna hadn't just been an innocent bystander. She had been chosen, the reflection he was programmed to destroy. When Eliza Monroe was arrested, the courtroom filled with journalists in tears. The prosecution called her a manipulator hiding behind a degree. The defense called her a misunderstood genius. But neither label captured the full truth. Every witness described Eliza's unsettling calm. She spoke about human behavior as though it was a science experiment, not a tragedy. When shown photos of Iryna, she simply said, "She was never the target. She was the manifestation." The jury watched in silence as the prosecutors displayed screenshots of her messages on the courtroom projector. Line after line revealed her cold detachment. "Fear is just data," she had typed. "I only want to see how deep it goes." When asked why she didn't stop Joshua, she said, "You can't stop gravity. Once a mine starts falling, it has to hit the ground." The room went cold. After 3 weeks, the verdict was read. Guilty of criminal negligence and involuntary manslaughter. Eliza showed no reaction, no tears, only a faint smile as if she had proven a theory. But outside, Iryna's mother wept, clutching a photo of her daughter. "You called it an experiment," she cried to the reporters. "But you played God with my child's life." Joshua was transferred to a high-security psychiatric facility, where doctors said he was beyond rehabilitation. For days he didn't speak, but then at 3:07 a.m. one night a nurse heard him whispering again. "She's back," he said. "She says we're not finished." Staff found words scratched into his wall. Subject Arrow 8. Observation begins. No one could explain how he knew those exact words. When investigators informed Eliza in prison, her face went pale. "That's not possible," she said. "The experiment is over." But the more Joshua spoke, the clearer it became. The voice in his head had returned, only this time, he claimed it wasn't Eliza. It was the reflection. He said she was in the glass, watching, waiting. Doctors called it residual psychosis. But when surveillance footage caught Joshua staring directly into a mirror for 7 hours straight, whispering to someone who wasn't there, even they began to question reality. Was this madness? Or had Eliza truly opened a door that could never be closed? The stabbing of Iryna Zarutska wasn't just another crime. It was a mirror held up to the human mind. It showed us how fragile sanity really is and how easily curiosity can turn into cruelty. Eliza Monroe wanted to study fear, but fear studied her back. And Joshua Denning, the man she used as a test subject, became the ghost she could never silence. Even today, late at night, nurses at the hospital claim they sometimes hear scratching from Joshua's old room. Faint, rhythmic, endless. When they look inside, the wall still bears the final words, "She's watching." Maybe it's just a story. Or maybe the reflection never stopped looking back. If this story sent chills down your spine, hit subscribe. Because the next true mystery might be even darker, even closer and waiting where you least expect it. Right behind the glass.